Alrighty, so this afternoon we're here for the third session of Antioch's oral history. And so Michael Schultz speaking, and we have with us Jeff McIntosh, Calvin Williams, Joyce McIntosh, Glenn Sears, Nancy Harris, Marcy Williams, Patterson, and I always just call you Marcy Williams, and Michael Christian. And so for time yet to come, Miss Marcy, would you tell us your full name and your birthday?
Marcy W. Patterson, birth date 12/7/1942.
Awesome. And so you've got this list in front of you, Marcy. We're going to go through 12 through 16 tonight. But if any of these questions stick out to you, something you'd really love to answer, you just let us know, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and memories on some of these things. But as we get started tonight on number 12 here, what brought you to Antioch? Jeff.
Well, that would be my parents and my grandparents. That's where I grew up, and it's always been. This is my home church, and I considered my other church until I became a member of this church as Bethel Grove United Methodist, and since I'm kind of where my mom grew up, I consider myself a bad Meth, basically. Baptist and Methodist.
Well, they're not Methodists no more, they're split.
Okay. Are they just calling themselves a community church or something? Okay. That's a lot of them have made that decision, and that's actually, I would support that with the way that the denomination has gone. Okay. Calvin, what brought you to Antioch?
Family. I was proud here ever since, I guess I was born. Of course, you either went here or you went where your parents went. They did do a little visiting in other churches. Dad went into the ministry. Well, we left here then. We did because they was our parents and we had to go where they go. They wouldn't leave us at home by ourselves. Then after we got 16, got our driver's license, we kind of faded out of that, come back into Antioch. Growed up here. And know the people down here, and not only my immediate family, a lot of my family related was here.
So you didn't spend, how long were you out of Antioch when your dad was pastoring?
How long I was out? Hey, I can't remember exactly when he started, what year. I was born in 44. He probably started in the ministry in the 50s.
Yeah, I could check his ordination certificate. We've got that in our documents. But you would have spent your preteen years out of Antioch, and you came back when you got your driver's license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Miss Joyce, what brought you to Antioch?
I guess Milton, he brought me on Sunday night to church. We had training union. I can't remember when we went to training union or not that time. I know we went to preaching.
Did you, so several have said this, did you guys come here on a date, or were you already married when you came here?
No, we was on a date.
Okay. That's not abnormal. Yeah. Glenn, what brought you here?
Well, I like Calvin. My family brought me here, but in 1970 I left. Well, really in 67 I left. When I went in the Army, I left. And I was gone until, how long have I been? 34 years on?
Yeah, around 20
But the reason I'm here, the last time I come, was because of COVID. Our church closed down. And I was there for about 3 months, and so I started coming down here. And I like the pastor, and I like the people. And I told my wife, and she was retiring, and it's just like any other job, when you retire, you don't want to go back to the same place, like if you retire from Emerson, you don't want to go back to Emerson,
Right.
So she didn't want to go back to church, so we started coming down here.
How long was she the secretary out at Post Oak?
45 years.
45 years. Okay.
Yeah, she's there a long time. she kept the books and had 45 years.
So let me
She
ask you,
never-
when you came back from Louisville, you were in Louisville for most of the postal work you did, or what brought you back to Russellville? Let me ask you that. I mean,
Well-
because
Okay. I went to Louisville, I started working in Louisville. And so, I just got sick of Louisville, you know.
well, it's good, good
they
enough
were gonna-
reason.
they were
Jeff
gonna-
agrees.
No, I agree.
They were gonna start busing, and my son was 5 years old, and the next year he was gonna have to be bused down to the west end of the, and I said, ain't gonna happen. And I'll quit work before I do that, and so, it is a Lord's doing. I come through Bowling Green and just so happened one Saturday morning, went in there, and Mr. Nam, he was the postmaster. He was never in the office on Saturday morning. I introduced myself. I said, Mr. Nam, I said, I'm Glenn Sheard. I'm working at the post office in Bowling Green. I said, I hated it when I went up there, and I hate it even worse now. Have you got anything I can do? He said, well, so we got all the jobs. I said, well, I said, we got anything. So he called me on Tuesday. He said, sell your house and everything, come in, but I'll make this job. So,
Yeah, that is the Lord's doing.
mm-hmm.
We're glad to have you back. Miss Nancy, you've kind of talked about this a little when you were a girl. You came out here the first time, but what actually brought you out here to be a member?
On the date with Morris Lee.
Now, had Morris Lee, was his family big here, or was he a first generation here?
No, I don't know how many Harrises were here. His great-grandparents were even here.
Okay.
The Floods are also his kinfolks. They're buried out here. The Links are his kinfolks.
Okay.
So that's where they were all at.
I
Okay.
didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Marcy?
Well, I started coming to church here when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I knew a lot of people here. I enjoyed it, and I just continued to come.
Did your family bring you, or were you on a
Um,
bus or something?
No, we came with Mr. and Mrs. Harris. They would stop and pick us up, my brother and me, and that's the way we got started.
Who were they, Mr. and Mrs. Harris?
What was Monica's husband's name?
Roy.
Roy, okay. Mr. and Mrs. Roy Harris.
Okay.
And they had a daughter named
Mark.
Mark. Mhm.
Mark.
The son, Wayne.
Yes. And they would pick us up on Sunday mornings, and my brother and I would come with them.
Jennifer said something to the same effect. She said May White used to pick her up, and that's how she first started coming. So that's not an abnormal story either. Some of these people that took an interest in a kid and just kept bringing them. That's how I got to church. Not here, obviously, but first time I started going to church, a deacon was picking me up and bringing me.
Yeah.
So thank God for people that do that.
Yes.
Alrighty, Michael. How did you end up here?
I was a baby.
I was born in this church.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's where family was coming, and that's how I got started out here.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old joke. I was Baptist before I was Christian. That's, for a lot of us, that's true. Well, I'll add into this one. In 2019, when I came to do pulpit supply, that was my full intention, was just to do pulpit supply. I had no intention of going into the full-time pastorate at that time, because I was going to do my master's and teach history. And the church asked me to consider the pastorate, and I actually said no, because Storm and I had already put a payment down on a home in Knoxville, and we had a Job-like experience after that, because the house, we had mold, we had fleas, we had everything in the world wrong with the house. And so I called Chris back, because he was my contact here, and I said, if you're still open to me coming, I'd be glad to come. And he said, well, actually, we've offered the job to an older man. And, well, grats, that's the end of that. And then he called me back a couple of weeks later and said, things didn't work out with the other guy. Are you still available? And I said, yeah. And so we've been here since 2019, but glad to be here. God, like you're saying, Glenn, God just worked it out.
I worked it out.
You're going here.
It was a miracle that I even got to go to Bowling Green, because they didn't even have a job opening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the jobs were frozen. You know, there's supposed to be no more hiring. And Mr. Lamb said, come on, I'll make a job for you.
Mm.
He was a good old man, I'll tell you what.
Alrighty, Jeff, why have you stayed at Antioch all these years? Now, you were out for a while for work.
Yes, I was out from work from 93 until last year, 2023. And it was a 24/7 call, working basically almost every Sunday unless I had a vacation. So after my job shut down, it was God sent me this job I've got right now, working at Chandler's as a counselor 5 days a week. And I'm moving back at home to be with my mom and family, and just love it, every bit of it. But what made me stay is because when I did get a chance on those 1 out of 52 every year, 2 years, I come back, and it's just the field of love. We're here still.
Calvin, what's kept you at Antioch all these years?
Well, part of the family again. I think one thing that's kept me here is the love and appreciation and all them things that the people within the body of believers here gave us, my whole family. I went to a General Baptist church. She was General Baptist.
Miss Carolyn?
Yeah, when we married. I went to her church some during my teenage years before we married. And but after we married, we decided to come back here. Well, we was coming here part-time, not all the time, but part-time. But after the family was, Kimberly was born, she come to the age of accountability, she was saved. So my wife wanted to move her and her membership from the General Baptist Church here, and Kimberly joined here. So that's how we kind of established it, and the rest of my family was born. They was saved in the church, and they joined it too. But since they married, see, they went to churches closer to them, which you can't blame them. But
now the church that Carolyn went to doesn't exist anymore, does it? It was out Mount Sharon Road, I believe. I think she's told me about that. Have I got that right?
no, that's Mount Vernon's where she went.
Oh, yeah, so that is out
Mount Sharon Church closed.
Okay.
That's the old church up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, the Mount Sharon Methodist Church closed, but Mount Vernon is on Mount Sharon Road. So she told me about that. I guess I must have got that wrong. I thought she said
Mount
it was...
Vernon's still open.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's still there. They got a pretty good sized church there. Yeah. We got married in that church, and we joined this church.
Thank you.
We joined over in matrimony. We joined there in fellowship. But anyhow, there's good people over there. They just got a little different belief than what we've got.
Now, being a deacon, nearly 40 years now you've been a deacon.
Don't say that.
There's been plenty of times that I'm sure it would have been easier to leave. And some deacons have. So let me ask you that. In the times when it's not felt so loving, or when the fellowship has not been good, why did you stay?
Biblical. I read a lot in the Bible and understand through trials, temptations, and all sorts of problems. Don't run from it. Hit it head on with what God has to say. And if you do that, it's going to work out. I've never known. I have come, me and her both have come and talked about moving somewhere else. But where we would go, we had to decide where we wanted to go before we left. We never could really think of a place that we really felt comfortable there, and main calling I believe in Collins. And, I truly believe in Collins, and one of the reasons I'm still here. Because I feel like God did it, that God had wanted me here, and He has worked things out. I mean, it's just not a overnight thing. When you have a church that's in trouble, it just don't cure up overnight. It just takes time. It takes prayer. You got to understand that we're the light of the world. The church is the light of the world, and people look at the church, people within the church. I guarantee you can go down here and you do a good thing for 25 years, and everybody will talk about the good things you've done in life, but you make one mistake.
I'll never forget.
And that one mistake it'll flood the country in less than a week. And that's just so Satan working, so we're gonna have to realize that the main thing that's helped me here is the calling. I'm gonna say, if God told me to go tomorrow, someone else to another church, I've got a plan for you and an opening there. I try my best to be there. And that's one of the things is, oh yeah, we've run in on problems, difficulties. Even since I was a boy, this church split once. And y'all probably remember that.
Ms. Avenel asked us to talk about that, so I hope to get to that here in a little bit. But
Yeah, it was a kind of a family thing, and so the church kept forward, kept going, callings, and people has come in and got in the church, and God just worked in it, what it is. You got to give Him credit for everything, but even marriages, you got problems in marriages. It takes time to work them out, and sometimes they don't. But you just got to work with it. Same thing in the church. We'll have problems tomorrow, next week, or probably next month. I hope we don't, but we probably will. We always have. In them 40 years, I've seen a lot of problems, and especially, I'd say within families and stuff like that. Yeah.
Ms. Joyce, coming from a Methodist background, and then your son being called for work and being widowed, what's kept you here all these years?
Mainly the people, the love of people, and I liked everybody, and so I didn't know where else to go, and I knew that Milton's family went here, his mom and dad, and Milton, and so I just loved the people and wanted to be associated with them.
Well, I'm glad you were here.
Thank you.
I consider you one of our greatest prayer warriors.
I don't know about that.
Now, Glenn, this is a weird question on your side because you've been almost sporadic after you left for the war and then come back here after COVID. But why have you stayed in the seasons that you have? What's kept you here?
I feel like this is where I was called. Like I said, COVID is before I come down here again. And I like Calvin, I want to know the place to go. I mean, well, there was a lot of churches in Russell that were closed, and there just wasn't any place that I really felt comfortable there until I come down here. And I enjoyed the preaching. But most of all, I enjoyed the people. But I really felt like that I was loved, and so that's the main thing, is the people.
Now, Ms. Nancy, you have been a member here close to longer than anybody else. Marcy technically joined before you, but she's not been here continually as long as you have. You're probably our oldest continual member. Why have you stayed here for 60 plus years?
I love the people. The first time I came here, we walked in and I had seen two couples at my church during revival, and there was the one little girl that I had been her student teacher at school, And that was the only 4 people I recognized. But they turned around and they smiled at us when we walked in. And of course, everybody in here remembered Juanita Key, Miss Bessie, Miss Pearl, and they come around, honey, we're so glad to see you and so glad to have you. And there was more besides them, but I can think of them all real quick. And it's been like that ever since I've been here. And I've had a hard time deciding on about leaving Oak Forest and moving my membership here. I knew Marshall would never leave Antioch. And I knew that we could not keep up 2 churches and do any good. So, what was it, 1960, I joined the church.
I believe so.
Debbie was about a year old. And I've been here ever since. I've never regretted it a day of joining this church.
I never regretted it either.
I hadn't either. Like I say, Michael was born here, and we've raised him. That's the reason.
That's the reason it's such a good person.
We've been with him about this long.
I can still see him in his suits, ain't found my major.
Miss Marcy,
Yes.
what has kept you here as long as you have been? I know you spent a good season in the middle, kind of like Glenn. You were out. But maybe what brought you back when you came back, and what's kept you here?
My family has always been here. My brother was here. And so I came back in 2007. But I love the people.
What was your brother's name?
Steve.
I always want to make sure we make the connections by name, because the next generation, they won't know.
No.
And they need to know. So yeah, I'm glad you've been here. Michael,
You're
now,
up next.
have you ever, let me ask this, have you ever regularly attended any other church than Antioch?
I wouldn't call it regularly attended. I did attend a few others when I got, right before I got married, and then as me and Barbara got married, we attended just a little elsewhere.
Okay.
Just,
You taste tested a couple.
yeah, rest of the time I've been here.
Okay. Well, it's the same kind of thing with Calvin. All these years as a deacon, and I won't say how many. Again, just like what I said to him, a lot of opportunities where you probably went home after church and said, that might be my last time. What kept you coming back?
Yeah, it was probably plenty of times it would have been a lot easier just to drop out and went somewhere else or whatever. But I always felt like, I never felt like a leader, but yet I felt like that somewhere or another God was using me to try to get others to work together, not split or not be mad or, you know, work on problems. And it didn't always work, but a lot of times it did seem like, you know, I was able to keep everything as calm as I could through that. And so, you know, I felt like he was using me for that.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. That the deacons in this church have always kind of been a stabilizing force. I think that from what I know of our deacons historically, that seems to be the case. Okay, what do you remember about physical additions to the church? So this is talking about the Sunday school rooms, this section. Some of you remember when Brother Laster led that movement. The fellowship hall, which was that the 90s that was added on, or the early 2000s? Or maybe?
Was Brother Mullen here then?
No,
Who was here? I can't remember.
he either had to be end of Brother Moody's term or start of Hughes' term.
I think it was Scott Hughes when he was there.
Okay. In any case, much more recently, what do you remember about the process there? Was there conflict about it? Who headed it up? Who brought it up? Proposed it? And are you glad that we did it, Jeff?
I had no idea what was going on this time period because I was in Glasgow at this time period. I can tell you about some things I remember differently as I grew up with the pulpit area. I mean, the auditorium, we used to have the Amen corner over there, and we used to have the choir up there.
Who was in the Amen corner?
Nobody. But it was there. I asked my grandmother what that corner was. She said that was the Amen corner. I was like, but I never remember anybody sitting there while I was growing up. Now, I don't know when it stopped, but it did stop somewhere along the way. I remember nothing about the new additions I knew about any of that project or any plans other than my mom telling me when I could see her and talk to her, but I didn't know anything about it.
Okay. When you were growing up here, did they still have windows that opened?
No.
Okay, that was...
Free more.
No. And I also remember that at the end of the hallway upstairs was the pastor's office.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And the rest was Sunday school rooms and nurseries up there on the top. It was nothing but one big fellowship hall out here where the rooms had been built and the kitchen when I was here. And we had a Sunday school class for adolescents in upper high school out in the main area where the fellowship hall was.
Okay.
Not the new one, but the old one.
No.
That's about all I can remember.
That's all right. Calvin?
Brother Jack Corsi was one of them was in the Amen corner.
I can see that
Ed
now.
Corsi. Those are some of the last ones in there. I think Frank Gank was part-time in there. But it was in that little, had 3 benches over there, and that's where it was at. Okay.
I'd love to do that again. Have a bunch of men shouting at me. That'd fire me up.
Yeah.
I might shout back.
I'd like to have a choir again.
Yeah.
I remember Brother Jack Corsi, because they called on him to pray. He'd go shouting before he started praying.
Mm.
I can
Yes,
see that.
He did.
yes.
And we growed up, me and Michael growed up in that.
Mm. I can tell you guys are fireballs.
I remember one time they had a preacher down, I believe it was, I can't remember who it was. He jumped up on the front bench and preached all the way down that bench and stepped off.
Mm.
There was a lot of them. What was it? Glenn was talking about the church. They didn't have air conditioning back in. Their church would be just ringing wet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's wet?
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. The question?
The physical additions. So the Sunday school area here with Laster or the fellowship hall.
Fellowship Hall. We was deacons then, and people come to me, and I can understand it. It's the old people that growed up during the Depression and money was tight, and they didn't go. My daddy never, as far as I know today, that he never went in debt for nothing. Absolutely nothing, because they grew up in Depression, hard times, didn't have no money, and scared to take chances. And I was a different one. My brother was kind of like that. He didn't want to borrow no money, but I was right the opposite. And Daddy worried about me all the time, about borrowing money. But anyhow, it was Fellowship Hall. A lot of them called me on the phone and said, Gavin Marshall, whatever you do, just don't say anything about the Fellowship Hall. Well, you got to vote, you vote. We'll never pay for it. There's no way in this world we'll never pay for it. Well, and so the very one, I guess God got a hold of them. They changed their mind. A lot of them have called me or said something about it, voted for it. So I don't, Michael probably can tell you, we paid it off, what, 2 or 3 years?
I don't remember exactly, but
It was 2 or
we
3.
paid it off about half what we set it up for. I think's the way it was.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that people got upset about. This church has never really wanted to borrow money, what you can say borrow money. Now, the young generation today, I'd say, probably now, you wouldn't have no problem borrowing money, or in the church that is.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, they just didn't believe in it, borrowing money.
Do you remember who was leading the charge to build the fellowship hall?
Oh, like over the fellowship hall or something?
Yeah, who wanted it? I mean, who brought it up?
I can't rightly remember who it was. Michael might can tell you.
Probably one of the main ones was Jimmy White that really wanted to do the fellowship hall, which, I mean, we outgrew the other one for a pretty good while.
Miss Joyce, what do you remember about the additions?
I remember the fixing the auditorium up there and the fellowship hall. And we did pay it off pretty soon, but I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
The fellowship hall. And I didn't hear about any conflicts, but or who started it or headed it up. And I'm glad that we did it. I remember we had something down here with the Antioch, not Antioch, but what is it? Elk Lick Baptist Church. We had them down for a fellowship, and I can't remember what it was for. We just had this little area out here, and you couldn't hardly get around. So I'm glad that they added on the fellowship hall. You got more room for people to gather and move around. I think that was a good idea.
When you guys put in the baptismal pool, when was that? I didn't think about putting that on my list here.
I have to look on the painting up there to get the date. I can't remember right off.
Was there any conflict about that since you'd been doing it down in this river or creek down here? Was there anybody that said, I want to keep doing it in running water, or was that something the church was generally fine with?
I don't remember being that much like against it, because I think the way we said it, you know, who all wants to put it in, and then if you don't want to be baptized there, we can still baptize, you know, down there. But I don't think we ever used anything but this since it's been put in, that I remember.
We had a baptizing down at Lake Malone once.
Okay.
I can't remember who was pastor then, but it was after I came back here.
I can't either.
But there were 3 boys that were baptized in Lake Malone.
I can't remember who they were.
I can't.
I can't either. But I remember it.
Didn't we go to Falls sometime and baptize some?
I don't remember that.
I was thinking we did.
You may have before I came back. But I know there were 3 boys that were baptized down at Lake Malone.
Well, Nancy, you might have heard stuff about this too, and I'm just skipping you, Glenn, because you weren't here for neither one of those, unless you remember Brother Laster's addition down here.
No, but I remember the steps being built.
The steps on the front of the church? Was the foyer put in at the same time?
No,
No, just the steps.
because my grandfather, I don't have I remember my grandfather, he helped build them. And I remember when this here was dug out.
Now, they was just dug out with tractors and things like
Dug
that.
out with a pond scoop.
A pond scoop.
And my grandfather done a lot of that.
Was that Charlie, or who was your grandfather?
Bishop Stinson.
Bishop, that's Charlie's brother. Okay.
And the only thing I really remember about this was the tractor reared up. When we get that pond scoop, you know, and you started up that bank there and the tractor reared up. And that's the only thing I remember, but I can remember. But I wasn't up 5 years old.
What I was going to say, Nancy, was I know Morris Lee was very respected in the church for a long time. Through the additions and things, did anybody call him, wanting him to throw his weight behind either side, for or against? Nothing like that.
He didn't like to run anything. And he was for what was the best for the church. What would it be best to get more members coming in? And that was the way he felt about everything. I was 100% for building a fellowship hall.
Yeah, I was too.
had a place to spread our food out and people sit at tables. I mean, you know, we had to sit around these little posts down yonder, have tables and try to get people to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people would eat upstairs too, wouldn't they?
Yes.
We did, little old bitty kitchen, we dished it out through the window there, and you can imagine what that was like, a full meal. So we really needed it. And nobody ever complained to me about it.
Well, I know when I first came, that was actually one of the first things that people were saying to me was when I walked through the church, they said, no, we've got a really nice fellowship hall. So by 2019, everybody I talked to loved the fellowship hall. But I know, like Calvin's saying, when you're in the process of doing it, sometimes people, they don't see it in their minds. So.
Well, I wanted it, and ever since I got it, I came down here and helped them.
Two things that we've got now that if we hadn't got, we really appreciate them now, and that's the baptistry and the fellowship hall. Those are, the baptistry is always there, winter or summer. You didn't go down here in this creek in the winter.
It was clean.
I remember something, sorry, I remember something also it had built about in the late 70s or early 80s. It's the bathrooms in the front.
I was about to mention the bathrooms. I appreciate the bathrooms.
Yeah, because I remember there was only 2 bathrooms, one for male, one for female, down here in the basement. You'd have to walk all the way down here. But now those 4A bathrooms are definitely was.
I remember the outhouses.
I was just
I
talking
don't
to Michael
remember that.
about that.
I remember that too.
I think I remember them standing back there, but no one using them.
When were the bedrooms built? Because they were, when I left here, they wasn't there.
Yeah, that's why I was asking you about the foyer. That's what I mean by the foyer
No,
where
they
the bathroom door.
wasn't, they wasn't there when I
The
went.
foyer was built a while, boxed in, and it was open,
Yeah.
and
for
there
the
was
bathrooms.
room there. I think the idea was, so when you had a funeral, there was room to have the casket scooted over on one side. And about that time is when they started having more funerals at the funeral home. Because the funeral homes, different ones, was expanding and having additions for people that didn't have a church, wasn't going to church, and they would have the funeral there. So I think that was the idea that, let's use that space for restrooms. And then that was added, I don't know how long after that was walled up, but we had it a while where it was open on both sides.
Yeah, and I guess it's, I remember that, but the bathroom were a new thing to me when I.
So they would scoot a coffin over to the side there and what's now the
Right.
foyer?
That way, when you was leaving, like at the end of the funeral, when they'd pull it over there as the people were going out, they could view
Okay.
as they was going out, and then they'd take it down the steps to load it into the hearse.
Okay.
That was the idea of having more room out there. And so when they started having so many at the funeral homes, they said, well, we need more restrooms, that'd be a good space for that.
The only thing about the restrooms upstairs, there's no hot water in them.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Well, and we're going to discover, this is a topic for another time, but we're going to discover quickly this winter that there is no longer any heat in either one of them either. Both of the heaters are out.
Oh, no.
So I'll be making trips down here. I'll be like Jeff, but I'll make the trip across the fellowship hall there. But Nancy, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Also, another thing is it's an extension, of course, is the ramp out here for
Yeah,
not
I
walking the
appreciate that,
steps.
because I feel down that throwing out there.
And you fell down those steps, Glenn, remember?
You would think the coffin would be taken down the ramp. The ramp wasn't there. That was just steps out there.
Well, to this day, we can't take a coffin down that ramp. Because the railing,
Yeah.
you cannot make that
Make the
turn. And so they still have to, that really is something that in the future could stand to be improved. Because I know when they had Dolores's funeral here, scared me to death. Because the pallbearers had her nearly vertical going down those front stairs. And it scared me to death. So that's something that in the future, if you're listening, future children, fix that. Nancy, any last thoughts on the additions? Anything you remember on additions before we move on?
The new fellowship hall.
Yeah, either the new fellowship hall or the Sunday school areas when that was added on with Brother Laster. Anything you remember there?
I can remember when I started the Sunday school here, Juanita had the young people, and Marsley was in her class. I guess he was the oldest one she had. And we were all, after we married, there was a whole bunch of us had married our age, and we were all still going in her class. And that's when, I don't remember who it was, said that we needed a young folks Sunday school class, and that's when they appointed Wilmer Sears. And we had that first room here in the basement, that was our class. And he taught as long as he lived.
Right at the foot of the stairs here. Now, do you remember when that was open? Because I've been told that that stairwell at once was outside.
Not when I was here.
Okay.
There's one on the other side that's still there, but not, but this one, theirs were closed.
Okay.
Now it's got padding on it, that makes it much better than concrete, I'll tell you.
Okay. Marcy, do you remember anything about those areas? I know you.
Not really.
Okay.
They were done mainly, the Sunday school wing I remember a little bit about, but not the fellowship hall. That was all built while I was gone.
Okay. And Michael, you've told me that your father was not in favor of the fellowship hall, but as soon as it was voted on, he became the biggest supporter of it. Or maybe that wasn't you that told me that. That might have been Avenel. I think Avenel told me that.
He never spoke to me about being against it, but as soon as we started to do any work on it, he was out here.
Yeah.
He was out here helping. But, you know, they had said that he wasn't for it, but, you know, he come to help and, you know, to work on it.
Yeah, it was either Avenel or Judy White that told me that he was not for it. And then as soon as it got passed, he was the biggest supporter of it.
Yeah.
As far as getting it done.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything in particular? Were you getting calls like Calvin where they were saying you cannot do this?
I don't remember any calls. You know, I think there was a lot of questions about, you know, how we could afford it. And that's when we got a loan from the Houchins Foundation for it. And they set it up, and I can't remember exactly, but I think it was about half the length of time that we were supposed to pay it off, we had it paid off. I think it was about half.
All right. 15, this one, you may not be able to think of anything. If you can't, I've got another question that's been submitted from Miss Avenel, but this one I just thought could be fun. What was one conflict that was serious in the moment, but you laugh about it now?
Well, that would be, I was a little kid, before I was even a member. I remember Brother Mullen calling for if he's going to stay in or stay out in the middle of a Sunday morning service. I was like terrified. I was like, what? That was change. I was a little kid. I was like, what's this all about? Because that was the first preacher I remember ever changing. Of course, I laughed about it now because it was like this. That's not unusual. But that's me. I didn't know.
Jennifer's told me that service startled her the same way.
Yeah, it was a shocker because it was like I was a little kid. I was like, I thought this would be a business meeting or something like that. I was a little kid. And I knew that.
You know, I can see that being startling. Just stand up. We're going to have a vote today.
Yeah.
You know, Calvin, anything?
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of upset the church in a way.
Yeah.
What I think he thought it wouldn't be enough to stand up to vote against it. And,
Did he leave after that?
yeah.
Yeah, that was the vote out.
Wow. Well, he may not have expected that.
He won a secret vote.
No.
You had to stand up.
He had to stand up.
Stand up, you wanted to leave, and
Oh my
you
goodness.
sat down and you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Golly, that would be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was,
Yeah.
there was a lot of people left for good.
Oh man, that's not the way to do that.
Mm-mm.
I would say, I don't know, I could think of, the people thought we could never pay for the fellowship hall or anything. Some of the people thought we couldn't pay for some of the things that the church done. But in the end, it was, we paid it off, and you look back and say, oh wow, what were we thinking? You know.
What could we do without it? We have it now.
Yeah,
How did we do without it?
Yeah, it was kind of, that'd be the only thing I could think of, it.
Ms. Joel, oh, go ahead.
And when you think back to how we used to have homecoming with all the
Yeah,
Wagons and
wagons and
Yeah.
things and the food setting out all the time and
Yeah.
everything, and how nice it is to have it in the fellowship hall now.
Well, even in the old fellowship hall, you didn't have enough room.
Come in.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ooh, sorry to disturb your meeting. I'm lost.
You're lost. Pick back up there. So I completely lost my place. All right, boy, serious moment where you can laugh about it now. Miss Joyce, do you remember anything like
I
that?
don't remember anything like that.
Okay. Glenn, even from childhood, you remember anything like that?
I remember a serious moment, but ain't nothing to laugh about.
Okay.
And really, I don't know enough about it to even talk about it. Probably Miss Nancy can tell you more about it than I can, but there was a big conflict back in the middle 50s.
Was this around the Coursey family? Okay, so that's actually the other question I was going to ask if we didn't have anything on this. We can talk about that if you're comfortable with it. Because
Well, I don't know enough about it to even talk about it
I don't
myself.
either. I wasn't here.
yeah, Miss Avenel asked me if we had anything in the minutes that explained what happened, and we don't.
Well, this is what Ray Mullen told me. That's what he told me. It all started over the Sunday school class. Upstairs. Ed Coursey had a Sunday school class up there. And when they split the Sunday school class up, that's when, and this is what Ray told me, he said, that they, Southern Baptist Convention, they started, remember when you had these little envelopes? You put on there, how many visits you made, how many,
Taking attendance?
yeah.
I remember that.
You could even get little
Well, that
lapel
was-
pins and stuff.
He thought that the Southern Baptist Convention was, you know, Baptist church was supposed to be an independent church. Well, the Southern Baptist Convention was trying to get too much. Anyway, it was, that's just, I don't know, that's just nitpick. But now, I don't know much about it, but I know that it split the church and it was, in fact, we never did get over it. The church has never got over it.
Now, you had a grandparent that died that day. Have I got that right?
No, they died June the 4th, 1954, but that was when all that was going on, and my grandparents got killed up there in front of Ed Coursey's house, and they don't know why he was going to Ed Coursey's house. They had something to do with the conflict. Am I right, Nancy?
You're right.
And they got run over by a big truck.
And I reckon, now that's just what I've been told. But as far as, I was in 1954, and I was only 7 years old, and I don't remember about what was going on, but I do remember that there was a lot of tears shed. I remember, they like to split my family. Because my grandmother, I don't know, they wanted to go one way and mom and daddy wanted to go, I don't know what it was, but there was conflict in my family.
Who was it that got killed?
My grandmother, grandfather.
Who were they?
Stenson's.
That was Bishop Stinson. Bishop.
Well, Nancy, can you tell us a little about that? Do you remember much about it?
Well, I just know what my husband told me. I know it tore him up and he never got over it.
No, there's a lot of
And he doesn't usually talk about anything like that, but he did that. And he told who the names was and things they said, and it was ugly. And it was all over, he said, Sunday school rooms. See, they had the Sunday school rooms on ropes, and they pulled sheets up, and they had their little classes. And so they had, what was it, Brother Joe Johnson, when he here then, okay? And when he came here, he wanted to make Sunday school rooms. And Mr. Ed, his family, no way. And that's what it started, that's when it started, over the Sunday school rooms.
Mr. Ed said,
And they got uglier and uglier, and things were said that should have never been said in God's house. And the courses left, and then they're down, went down this fall. And I guess every one of them's dead now, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they, I remember my grandmother, the day that she got killed, she come to my mother's house. And I don't know what it was about, but anyway, she was trying to get her to go, I don't know what it was, anyway, she got killed. And my mother never got over it. Well, there was some kind of, I mean, you don't leave with broken ends. And there was some broken ends for my mother and my grandmother. And she never got up.
Now, the Corsies were big leading the music at that point. We got that right?
Church belonged to them, really.
Yeah, he said if we leave, said he was a songwriter, and all Buddy was a songwriter. His master was a piano player. And in other words, if they left, the church just had to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
They all left, didn't
Yeah.
they? All that family.
That is, yeah.
We just,
I barely remember that.
if we leave, this church just had to shut down. But they didn't.
So it's awful.
It was terrible. I mean, I'm glad that I wasn't, but I remember my mother and daddy, they cried. And like you said, they had a business meeting down here just on, it was terrible.
And they all didn't leave though, because Aunt Lizzie White stayed here. She was a Corsie. And I don't know, now Granny Corsie, which will be Rosie Cleveland Williams, was a Corsie. She went to Eltlick, I think
Yes,
she went to
to
Eltlick. But now her daughter, which is Annie Williams,
Miss Lizzie, she stayed here.
she
Yeah,
stayed here.
Yeah.
And Miss Lizzie
Yes.
stayed here. Now that's the only part of that Corsie family that
She-
generation stayed.
She was my, of course, step grandmother, and she wouldn't talk about it.
And I didn't hear anything about
If
it.
I was a kid,
I don't think Mom would talk
I'd
about
say
it.
something to her about it, she wouldn't even talk about it. She
Well,
said, we're not talking about that.
What I heard just come through secondhand from Brother Mother, from my mother and daddy, they wasn't talking about it.
And I always wondered why there was a split there. Now I know it was back in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Well,
And I knew it was basically that a bunch of people went to Eltlick. I didn't know the reason or anything about it.
Well, when that about the time his Sunday school rooms was open,
That's when you got the Sunday school.
yeah. So I remember my grandfather not, a bunch of people built this basement. And about the time that we were doing the Sunday school room, but like I say, I wasn't 5 years old, so I didn't know.
But God was with the church.
Yeah, sure was. So I reckon Elk doing okay, and Antioch doing okay too, you know.
And we're able to reunite too, obviously, because we've had Eltlick visiting here.
Yeah.
They say Spall is doing better now than it ever has.
Mhm.
They say Spall is doing better now than they have in years.
Was Spile built about that time, or was it already built?
no, Elklick was already there.
Yeah, they
Long
were
time.
down.
We're,
We planted them in the 1800s.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's,
Mhm.
yeah. And back then, Elklick was full of a lot of the Corsi family, even when it was planted. So that would have been natural for them to go there. They probably had family there already, but now when I got here, there were Corsis attending here. A few of them have passed now, but of course I only know them as the Giants. I don't know them by name. They're just gigantic human beings. Okay, that's somewhat of a different set of people. All right. Yeah.
Well, someone at the church out there that goes told me that since the ones from the family that tore up our church are all dead now, the rest of them get along fine. They've got a wonderful church, and everybody's happy.
That's great.
So I think that's wonderful.
That's what
It is.
my old pastor, we had this woman that was always causing trouble. She called trouble. And somebody went to him and found one and said, Brother Joseph, what we gonna do about Sister so-and-so? I'm not gonna do it, she's gonna die.
God's gonna take care of it.
She's gonna die. That was his answer. He didn't worry about nothing, she's gonna die, God ain't gonna take care of her, she's gonna die.
All right.
Well, that's what everybody died, so God took care of it.
See, he does.
Charlie Chaplin had a quote about that. He said, "So long as men die, freedom will never die."
Right.
And we just, that's a natural reset God's built into the system. Marcy and Michael, did you have anything to add on that before we get on this last one? All right.
I couldn't think of nothing that I thought was serious at the time and laugh about now.
It's all still pretty serious. All right. What has been your favorite mission, whether that be a mission trip or something we've supported, or a partnership that we've given to or gone on as a church? What's the favorite thing when you think of missions or something we've contributed to as a church? What's the thing you love the most? Jeff?
I'm trying to think about this. I remember, I think we used to go and do, what would they call it, knocking at the doors and seeing how people were doing and trying to recruit to have them come to church. I can't think of
There were a lot of members that weren't coming.
Like door-to-door evangelism?
Visitations.
Yeah, visitations. I remember doing that.
We done that on Wednesday nights.
Mhm.
Shirley Ballard and David and I can't
Yeah,
remember.
that's, I remember you, me, Shirley Ballard, and David all go and get in the car and go. We each of us had a little list of people to go to. Favorite, and not mission, but I can say the favorite thing I did during vacation Bible school related to mission, telling the children about the missions and where they came from and what they had to deal with as they were doing their mission trips in foreign countries.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that during vacation Bible school. I did that about 2-3 years, I think.
Calvin, your favorite mission trip or partnership or anything we've supported as a church?
Well, I think it's good that we got one right now, is a good partnership in Antioch, and that's Shoebox Ministry. Another one was the OK Ministry, Brother Jimmy. We helped them get started in Otos, is that the name?
Mm-hmm.
Otos Baptist Church, that's another one. That was the two right on top of my head. The mission field, I think it's good we support missionaries in other countries. We still done that, I think.
Yeah.
Teen Kids is another good thing. That's about all I can think of, I guess, but I think we're blessed by doing it, supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
We never can outgive God. So, we're helping other people in many ways.
Miss Joyce?
About the ones you mentioned, they're really good. And then at one time, we went to the nursing home on Saturday night. We'd sing, and the preacher would come and say a few words, and then we would dismiss and shake all of them's hands and talk to them, just because they probably didn't have very many visitors come.
Mm-hmm.
And you were about the only ones that saw them unless their immediate family. And they enjoyed that. They really enjoyed it. That's about all I remember.
Glenn?
I don't have any come to mind. I left in 1970 and then come back 2 years ago. So a lot's been in between. So I don't. I guess Teen Kids would be one that comes to my mind.
Miss Nancy?
I am proud that we do missions, and I'm proud that we, are supporting our teen kids here. They really do need us.
Right.
And, I know some of them would not be in church at all if somebody didn't pick them up and bring them.
Mhm.
And I can understand that because I was one of those kids that was picked up, as I told you. And we also had went on some just trips the church did, and I enjoyed them.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, I forgot about that. We don't do
Where'd we
that.
go, Michael?
We went to Uric Springs once,
Did we go to the mountains
to the
too?
Passion Play out there.
Yeah, Oh, we really enjoyed that. And did we not go to the mountains one time?
Yeah, I think so.
Just, just good Christian bunch together and had a good time. I mean, we just done a lot of little things that, to help other people more than anything. And I'm proud of the church's work.
Ms. Marcy?
Well, I appreciate the teen kids. We love feeding the kids and watch them grow and come down there and have fellowship with them and get to know some of the kids that we wouldn't get to know otherwise. Also, we used to have people go out to Cape Crossway
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 times, and we haven't done that for quite a few years.
We sent a team last year. No, last 2 years. We've sent teams because Kathy and David went 2 years ago, and then Chris took a group of youths last year. So we're trying to get back on the boat with that.
Okay. Because I know they're doing awfully good work out there, and they're trying to expand their mission field out there. And also giving to the Lottie Moon and the other missions that we give to.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that we need to keep all the missionaries in prayer because they go to countries where they're not welcome and they're persecuted.
That's right.
So we need to keep them in our prayers at all times.
Yeah. I was really motivated for the Lottie Moon the Lottie Moon offering, and Annie Armstrong and Eliza brought us also. In Indianapolis this year, I went to the SBC meeting, and they had it set up where you got to see all the missionaries we were sending out. And it was 60-something that we were sending out just at that meeting, but 40 of them we were not allowed to meet because they were going to countries where it's illegal for them to go.
Right.
And so you're not allowed to know their identity.
No.
And so just the fact that we're doing that as a group and that your dollars going to the Lottie Moon are paying to keep them there, that really motivated me. I think that's a really good thing that Antioch's a part of. Michael?
I was thinking back, y'all mentioned a lot of them, but one that kind of stuck out in my mind is we went to Alabama when they had a tornado down there. Brother Jimmy led that, and we probably had, I'm going to say 10, 12 couples or more. We went down there, and it was just, it was so moving. We got to help quite a bit, but we was driving along, and when we got down there, and everything looked fine. We thought, well, what's happened here? And we just topped a hill, and it was just like a mile wide, and I forgot how many miles long. It was just flat. It was just, just total destruction. And we was able to work and help a bunch down there. I really enjoyed that.
Michael, what year was it that a lot of people went up in eastern Kentucky? They had Vacation Bible School. They repaired houses for people that couldn't afford it. Do you remember?
I don't remember what year. It would have been before 13, because Barbara was part of that.
Mm-hmm. They did that 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They would pick out houses, repair windows, doors, and things like that.
Yeah.
To help them and have Vacation Bible School for the kids and spend a week or 2 up there.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the name. It's like 3 towns just right in a row.
Yeah.
You don't know when you're leaving one, going into the other one. It's where there's a lady has a home there for unwed mothers, and she's built that up. She's out of Nashville. I'm still in contact with her, and she has that home, and there's other things there. Well, she was a big part of the backpack ministry, how it got started going into eastern Kentucky. And I was trying to think of the name of that town. Seems like Brennan or something is one of, I don't know, it's like 3 towns right in a row, and you don't know you're leaving, like I said, one going into the other. But, it was, I think it's maybe 2 years went up there to do work like that.
Yeah.
I know Gail's told me about those trips. He loved that. He really enjoyed those.
It was like a BSU trip I took when I was in undergrad at Lindsey Wilson. We went to St. Louis, and we actually put a vacation Bible school on for the kids in the afternoon. And we actually helped rebuild a church and did a soup kitchen cleanup afterwards. It was really enjoyable. Everybody had a great experience with that.
Yeah.
There's one place you went, I don't remember where it was. You might have been with a choir, I don't know, but you had to lock the door as soon as you came in.
That was in St. Louis. That was in St. Louis. Yeah. That was, they locked the door as soon as the service started and unlock it afterwards. That's how bad the neighborhood was. But that was really a good experience.
Well, I love that a couple of the ministries that we have here that I was completely unaware of before my coming that I really love that we're a part of. The Galilean Home. If you've never been up to visit that, I'm sure most of you have. But I went with a group to visit that when I'd only been here a year or two. And that's a wonderful ministry out there for people that are mentally
Where is
disabled.
that located?
Liberty.
Yeah, you get off an exit that's called Nancy. I always think of you when I'm getting off of it. You get off this exit that just says Nancy. And I'm like, what in the world kind of name for a city is Nancy, Kentucky? But it is. Yeah, it's maybe an hour on the other side of Bowling Green. That's a great thing out there. And I'm really glad that we partner with that. And one thing that I can say as we're wrapping up here is, you mentioned the tornado in Alabama. Even in my time here, this church has always had the ability to just up and raise money or provide resources for anything that's had a need like that. When the tornadoes hit Mayfield a few years ago, Barbara and Eric specifically contributed a lot of money to be sent out to that. And the whole church collected resources that me and Storm and little baby Violet at the time drove out there. And the same thing with the Open Heart, Open Hands ministry. Seemed like anytime you've ever said we could use a little bit of help out there, the church really rallies and helps that out. So it's a church with a big heart. That I'm thankful that it's a church with a really big heart. So that's a couple of things that have stuck out to me. Thank you, guys. Next week we will look at some of our pastors. That's you got a list of them there on the bottom, and if those dates aren't precisely right, it's Wilmer Sears' fault. Went through the minutes and tried to get the dates on these pastorates, and so most of them up through Ray Mullen should be right. Those last few, I don't know if that's precisely right, but we'll talk about those. Just anything you might remember about these fellas. And then if we don't have all that much to say, I'm just going to start going through some of the people in our cemetery, and you tell me about what you know about them. Yeah, Miss Nancy.
Foster Chestnut was here from 62 to 64. Is that what that means?
So you might have an older one. I've updated that since. So here,
Well,
this
he
is.
was here in 56.
That's what, yeah. So went back on the minutes there and got that corrected.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that
So
one.
I think if you don't have the updated one, yeah. So the new one that has the months with it, that is what's in our minutes at least. I'm not going to say that's correct, but that's what's in the minutes.
Mhm.
And so,
That's better.
okay, yes. So yeah, that's what we have on the minutes. And Marcy, if you wanted to get the info for those last 3, that'd be great. But if you don't want to go through the trouble, it's not overly
It's
important.
not that
Okay.
hard.
All right. Yeah, that'd be real helpful. But that's what we'll be doing next week, and then starting on some of these folks that are in our cemetery. Thank you guys for being here.